Oprah Winfrey said something on stage at a major advertising festival that nobody expected to hear, and it's still causing problems for her days later. She told the crowd that Whitney Houston had gone back to drugs before her final appearance on her old talk show. She said Whitney fell off the stage that day, Dejanlay, and she said she personally asked her studio audience not to take pictures because she wanted to protect Whitney's image from getting out. It sounds like an old story she was simply sharing from memory, but it isn't that simple because Whitney Houston isn't here to confirm any of it, and she isn't here to deny it either. She passed away back in 2012. So when Oprah brought this up on a stage in another country, in front of a room full of executives who had nothing to do with Whitney's life or career, she was the only voice in the room who could speak on it. That's exactly why Mo'Nique got involved. She said plainly that people shouldn't just accept somebody's word as fact, even if that somebody is the great Oprah Winfrey. Then she said the line that's been repeated across every comment section since: "How do you talk about someone who can't even say yes or no for herself anymore?" This was never really about a fall on a stage. It's about who gets to control a woman's story once she isn't around to correct it herself. Whitney's own family agreed, and they didn't stay quiet either. Her estate put out a statement that goes directly against what Oprah said. According to them, yes, she did fall, but it happened during a sound check in a dark section of the stage, in a space she wasn't familiar with. She was not high. Two people, the same exact moment in history, two completely different accounts of what actually happened. Somebody's memory doesn't match up here, and since that family statement came out, Oprah hasn't said a single word. No follow-up interview, no clarification, nothing from her team either. That silence has been doing a lot of talking on its own. Now here's something a lot of people forget in all this. This clash between Mo'Nique and Oprah did not start this week, and it didn't even start this year. It goes back well over a decade, and once you understand the history behind it, the whole Whitney situation reads completely differently. Mo'Nique won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for a role that was supposed to change everything for her career. That's the kind of win that's supposed to open every door in the industry. Instead, she has said publicly, more than once, that the doors closed on her right after. Mo'Nique won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for a role that was supposed to change everything for her career. That's the kind of win that's supposed to open every door in the industry. Instead, she has said publicly, more than once, that the doors closed on her right after. She's claimed that speaking up about how she was treated behind the scenes, both on set and during award season, got her quietly frozen out of Hollywood. Not fired with headlines splashed everywhere, just slowly and quietly left off lists and out of rooms she used to be welcomed into. And the names she keeps bringing up when she tells that story are Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels, the same people connected to the very film that won her that award. So, none of what's happening now is random. This is more than 10 years of built-up tension, and Whitney's name just happened to be what set it off again. There's another layer buried in this history, too. And of Prass, Mo'Nique has talked before about a television special involving her own estranged family members, where she claims she wasn't told the full truth about who would actually be brought on camera or how the whole thing would be edited together before it aired. Put that memory next to the Oscar fallout, and it starts to make a lot more sense why Mo'Nique doesn't hesitate to call Oprah out in public over and over, year after year. But the detail that really got people talking this time is a comparison Mo'Nique pulled directly from Oprah's own life. Back in 2020, Oprah fell too, and she explained it herself immediately, in her own words. She said her shoes were the problem, gave a simple explanation, and the story was closed within the same news cycle. Whitney never got that chance. Oprah got to explain her own fall on her own terms, using her own voice. The same day it happened. Whitney is having her fall explained for her by somebody else, years after she's gone, with no way to correct a single detail of it. That's the double standard people are pointing to right now, and it spread fast once Mo'Nique said it out loud. Oprah has said, in her own words, that she personally asked that studio audience not to leak any pictures from that day. specifically because she wanted to protect Whitney from public embarrassment. So look at the actual order of events. Whitney falls. Oprah asks an entire room to protect her by staying quiet about it. More time goes by. And now Oprah, the very same person who once asked for silence to protect her, is the one bringing the story back up in public, on a stage, in front of strangers who had no connection to Whitney whatsoever. If protecting her image really was the goal back then, why bring any of it up now? Why tell the story at all, once the person it's about has no way left to respond to it? That single question is the reason this whole controversy hasn't calmed down. Mo'Nique isn't the only person asking it either. A well-known comedian and radio host got involved too, and he did not soften his words at all. He said he lost his own son to an accidental overdose, and made it clear that he doesn't care whether Whitney was using drugs that day or not. To him, and to a huge number of people who grew up listening to her voice their whole lives, Whitney wasn't just a singer. He called her, basically, Black America's auntie, the one talented person in the family that everybody claimed as their own. That's the part a lot of people feel got completely ignored in Oprah's version of events. Whitney's voice played at weddings, at funerals, on Sunday mornings in kitchens across the country. She wasn't some stranger's private business to bring up on a stage full of executives who never actually knew her. And when something that deeply personal gets used as a talking point at a corporate festival, surrounded by cameras and sponsors, instead of people who genuinely loved her, it doesn't come across as a heartfelt tribute at all. It comes across as something else entirely. Oprah's longtime co-host and close friend got pulled into the backlash too, accused online of staying quiet instead of questioning the story publicly herself. At the same time, people claiming to have worked directly around Whitney during that era started coming forward with their own competing memories. Some backed Whitney's family completely, word for word. One specific claim that spread widely says, Whitney's own hairstylist witnessed Oprah personally walk backstage that day and apologize to the team, not for drugs, but for the poor lighting that reportedly caused her to fall in the first place. If that account is accurate, it raises an obvious question about why the story changed so dramatically all these years later. Two timelines, two competing versions, and only one single person who could ever actually settle this for good. She isn't here anymore to do that. That's the real mystery buried underneath all of this. Not whether Whitney struggled with personal battles at points in her life, because she spoke about that herself openly while she was still alive. The mystery is why this exact version of this exact private moment surfaced now, delivered on a stage that had nothing to do with her legacy, in front of an audience that never knew her at all. Some corners of the internet already have their own theory about the timing of all this. They're pointing out that Oprah's comments came out around the same time. A major music executive tied closely to Whitney's career was already facing fresh public criticism of his own. The theory spreading online suggests maybe this story was never really about Whitney at all. Way to shift the conversation elsewhere, right when attention was already building somewhere else. Nobody has proven any of that. But the fact that people are even willing to ask the question says a lot about where public trust currently stands when it comes to these kinds of stories. For years, when Oprah said something publicly, very few people dared to question it. Her word functioned as the final word on most things. Watching her get challenged by Whitney's own estate, by a grieving father turned radio host, and by one of the most outspoken women in Hollywood, all within the same short stretch of time, something in that dynamic has clearly shifted. And through all of the noise, Mo'Nique keeps returning to one point that matters more than anything else in this entire story. Just because Oprah Winfrey says something doesn't automatically mean everyone has to treat it as fact. That's Mo'Nique standing in front of an audience and telling an entire industry that being famous and being accurate are two completely different things. That even the most trusted person in any room can still get a story wrong or shape a memory to fit whatever it needs to say at that particular moment. She also made sure to add something else right after, almost as if she already knew people would twist her words into pure hostility. She said she still loves Oprah and made clear that correcting someone publicly doesn't mean you've turned your back on them privately. Complicated kind of loyalty. Publicly dragging someone into the spotlight while still quietly calling her family behind the scenes. But that's exactly who these two women have always been to one another. Never simple enemies, never simple friends either. Something far more tangled, built on years of shared history that most outsiders only ever get to see in scattered pieces. So, where does all of this actually leave things right now? Whitney's family insists one version of events is true. Oprah insists on a completely different one. Mo'Nique insists nobody should be telling this story at all, without Whitney's own voice somewhere in the conversation. A grieving father insists none of these details even matter anymore, because her memory deserves far better than this. And an entire online audience remains stuck, endlessly picking sides in a story about a woman who no longer has any way to pick a side of her own. Maybe that's the actual scandal hiding underneath everything here. Not the fall itself, not the lighting, not even the drugs. It's how easily somebody's most painful, most private moment can get pulled back out of storage, repackaged for a crowd, and handed over to complete strangers, years after she's already gone, with zero chance for her to ever say a single word about it herself. Oprah built her entire career and her entire brand around one simple idea: giving people